My name is Hélène Gobey, and I'm in charge of Director of Communications and Campaign and Development and Peace.
L'image du PowerPoint pour qu'on puisse montrer aux gens l'interprétation.
And we just want to inform you that we have the interpretation.
Alors, vous avez l'interprétation.
Before we begin, you can pick the interpretation at the bottom of your screen and click on the little globe icon, bottom of the screen. If not, it's three little dots. You click on it and you pick interpretation. So we are in webinar mode. So we'll ask you to post your questions in the question and answer section. So that's where you can ask your questions to the panelists. And at the very end, when we will close the webinar, you'll be asked to participate in a survey to evaluate the webinar. And we really appreciate your feedback because that's the best way to improve our work, and also it's important to get your comments on the content. So French, English interpretation.
Choose your language. If you don't see it, click on three-dot icon. Question to the panel. Type your question in the Q&A. You have the Q&A open in the box at your right. And at the end, a survey will appear on your screen. After the webinar, please answer it to tell us how we did. Alors, donc, je vous souhaite tous et toutes la bienvenue.
So, welcome to all of you this Saturday afternoon. I'd like to thank especially the panelists who are with us. Thank you for your availability, since we know that you have very important work to do in your country. However, thank you for being with us to help us better understand the situation in Palestine presently. I will invite Luke Stocking, Director of Public Engagement, to welcome you more formally and open up with a prayer. Luke, thank you, Hélène. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. When we began the preparation for this webinar, there was no ceasefire back then. So it's a good step in the right direction, but there's still a lot to do. Thinking of the words of Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and of our main partner, he declared clearly, it's a good news, we're very happy, and it's a first step, a first phase, but there will be many others to come. There will be also other obstacles. But for the time being, we need to rejoice, because this step will bring us more trust and a new hope to the Israeli and Palestinian population. And now we see something new and something different. We're very honored today to welcome our guests who will help us reflecting on the different steps that we may take and to progress, to go on with this new hope. So before I give the microphone to Hélène, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement and a brief prayer. I'd like to acknowledge that the National Office of Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, is located on Indigenous land that has never been ceded. I acknowledge the Kainanaga Nation as a guardian of the waters and the lands where I'm standing today. Montreal is historically known as a place for gathering for many First Nations, and today an indigenous diversified population as well as other peoples are living in those lands. And let us pray now, God of love, we ask you to bless our gathering today and all those efforts for justice and peace in Palestine. All those efforts that those who are here accomplished and keep on accomplishing every single day. May that time that we spend together bring us closer to the next steps. May it gives us the courage to go on with a new hope today and for the future. Amen. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Luke.
Bashar
I'd like to introduce
Fawadleh,
now
je m'excuse,
the
mon père, si
Father Bashar Fawadleh,
je prononce mal votre
and
nom.
I apologize
Il est
if
né
I'm
du père
not
Bashar
pronouncing it
Fawadleh de
correctly.
l'Église catholique en Terre
So,
Sainte, remonte bien avant son
Father
ordination en
Bashar's
2014.
connections to the
Enfant, il a
Catholic
fréquenté
Church
une
in the
école du
Holy
Manuel
Land goes back
Falafin
to
et dans
way
sa
before his
jeunesse, il a
ordination
obtenu
in
un baccalauréat en
2014.
théologie et en philosophie au
As he
séminaire
was
latin
young, in
de
his youth, he
situé
gained
à
a
Bet
bachelor's degree
Jala.
in
Il est
theology
le
and
fondateur et
philosophy from the
directeur de
Latin
Radio
Seminary
El
in
Haya, une
Bejala.
station de radio
He's the
communautaire en
founder
ligne.
and director
Depuis
of Nad El
2021, il est
Haya,
curé de
online
Taybeh,
community
une des
radio
dernières villes
station. Since
palestiniennes de la majorité
2021, he
chrétienne.
has been
À ce
the
titre,
parish
il a
priest for
publié une
Taybeh,
déclaration
one of the
commune
last remaining
avec d'autres
Palestinian
prêtres
towns
dénonçant
with
une
a
attaque de colons israéliens contre sa ville
predominantly
qui a
Christian
également été
population.
publiée sur notre
In his
site web en
capacity, he issued
visionnement.
a joint statement
Mon
with
père, la
other
parole vous
priests
est donnée.
denouncing an Israeli settler attack to his town, which was published on our website this past July. The floor is yours.
Oui.
Ok, bonjour à tous, à toutes. Je parle
So,
français, mais
hello.
je ne sais pas si
Hello,
c'est
everybody.
le
I
webinaire
speak
en français. C'est
French,
pourquoi
but I don't know
j'ai
whether the webinar
traduit
should
en
be in
anglais.
French or
Donc,
English. That's why I
je laisse
prepared
en parler
my
en anglais et
presentation
après on
in
va
English.
discuter
But we can speak, we can make the presentation in English and then answer your questions in both languages.
Parish priest in Taybeh since 21, as Helen said. I'm here in Taybeh, the only and the last village, all 100% Christians. What's Taybeh facing? It's all the villages and cities in all around West Bank, in area C and A and B. It's facing is the same of the settlers going against the inhabitants of the villages and the cities of West Bank, as we call now Palestine. Taybeh, it's very ancient city. Taybeh is very important and necessary because when we are talking about Taybeh, we are talking about that Jesus visited Taybeh. If we open St. John Gospel chapter 11, verses 54, we can see that Jesus left Jerusalem after the resurrection of Lazarus and came to the nearby of the desert to the city called Ephraim, and here is Ephraim. And you can see in the PowerPoint the ancient church that attacked by the settlers behind the church, just 3 meters between the wall of the church and the church itself, by the settlers when they burned the fire behind the church and beside the cemetery. This church is called St. Joe Church, or we can say it in Arabic, Al-Khadr, a church that means the green, who give us the life and who give us and protect our life. So this church is from 5th century. And unfortunately, we are facing these kind of tactics and attacks by settlers themselves since 2023. If we are talking about our problems, we can go to the next slide. If we are talking about our problems, we are talking about the first attacks by the settlers in the 2023. After the 7th of October, when the settlers came and hit our people in the season of harvesting, as the same season that we are doing now, because after 15th of October until 15th of November, this is the season of harvesting for the olive trees. You can see all these photos by the settlers that when they grazing the cows inside our land, and the photos in your right hand, you can see when they burn the fire behind the church and beside the cemetery. and this one guy who can raising the cows by himself. They came and they occupied a small site and a small place. They kicked the Bedouins out. And you know that very well that Taybeh is composed by three areas: Area A, Area B, and Area C. From Area A in the direction of west of Taybeh until the center of Taybeh, it's Area C, B, and A. And when we going from our place here now in the parish of Taybeh, Latin parish in Taybeh, from Area A to Area B until the farms garden in the east of Taybeh in your third photos. All of that, it's area A and B. And we can also build as Oslo agreement and the declaration in Oslo that we can build in area A and area B without any permission from the Israelis. And if there is any military attacks, they have to coordinate with the Palestinian Authority. Unfortunately, all of that, we don't see it, and we don't have something like that, and we don't feel that we are in safety. Coming back to the 2023, when the settlers came out from their sites and came to the sites for the Bedouins, they kicked the Bedouins out, and this is the first stage of tactics of the settlers. They occupied the land, they put spaces for the sheep and the cows, and they starting to planning for how they can also attack the people. They starting with grazing the cows. And after that, you can see the third slide. You can see our parishioners who hit by themselves in 2023, that when they hit the parishioners in their land, and they would also to kick the people from their land in 2023. The second attack was in 23 when they attacked also the student bus of the school when he came back from the duty, and we were lucky that the bus was empty. They broke in the windows. The third attack was last year, 2024, when one of our parishioners came from Jerusalem. He's originally from Taybeh, but he lives in Jerusalem because his ID and his holder ID, Jerusalem ID. He came in the west of Taybeh to see and to visit his land, and they hit him by the stone, by the sticks, by the iron equipments, and all of that. And he went to the hospital of Harout Bedrossian in Jerusalem, in the west of Jerusalem. You can see in these photos, the next slide, please. You can see the attacks by the settlers when they attacked this man and woman. They are family. They went to the field, and they hit them by the sticks and the settler and the other things. The fourth attack was last June and last July. Last June and last July, the settlers. We can go on. Next slide. You can see that they grazing the cows. They burned the fire in the empty land, and after that they burned fire in the cars. These three cars, they burned fire in the cars, and also they are not caring. There is no restrictions. There is no policeman from the Israeli or from Palestinian who can save our life, and they make a security for ourselves. You can see they burned the fire in the area for the housing project for Orthodox Church and the neighborhood. You can see that, and after all of that, we have a Solidarity Day with the heads of the churches, two patriarchs of Jerusalem, and all the heads of the churches came with more than 20 diplomatic mission in 14th of July. In 18th of July, Mr. Mike Huckabee, the ambassador of America, also came to Taybeh to visit Taybeh without any invitation, because he canceled his visit with the diplomatic mission. He came another after the pressure from the Washington offices in America, and he came after his visit. They burned the fire in two cars, as this is the revenge from themselves. Because of the visits of the ambassadors and the consuls and the diplomatic missions in the area. All of that, we are under the attack of the settlers. Until now, we can see also all the written. They wrote something on the wall of the houses. They would also to burn the fire in the houses, and this is a tactics of the settlers. Occupied land, grazing the cows, burn the fire in the empty land, burn the fire in the cars, and after the target of themselves, killed the people. And until now, we are lucky that we didn't have this experience of killing the people inside Taybeh, but we are, I think, in the borders of that. So we have to take care, and we have to put more pressure through by your organization, through by your diplomatic ways, to put more pressure on Israelis to give some safety and to put limit for these fanatic settlers, because we would also to live in peace and justice. After they burned the fire in two cars, one of the our guests who came to Taipei, he was the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Germany, and you can see in the next slide that he came and he visited municipality, St. Joe Church, and he came also to the houses who attacked by the settlers. And you can see in your own eyes that in Hebrew language they would also to complain integrated soon and revenge something. And this is a price tag by the settlers, attacked and carried out by the settlers against the Palestinian villages. All of that, we are under attack. What the church is doing now? The church is doing that something very small, but it's a huge capacity. The church is doing very good way that we don't react, and we didn't react. Our reactions, it's not because of the settlers, because we are the actions. Always, as the church teaching us that we have to be the actions always, not the reactions from anyone, because we have to be the people who took the initiative and making something very new in very good way, in polite way, and it's immoral way, I think. That's why we are talking about the attacks by the settlers. We are talking about all of these with the diplomatic missions, and we still also facing very bad idea. In the next slide, we can see Al-Khadr Church burned by the settlers, and Al-Khadr Church grazing the cows inside the compound of the church. This church, we use this church. This is not archaeological site. We celebrate Mass there, we celebrate baptism there, we celebrate marriage there, and we are finalizing always every Palm Sunday the three churches in Taybeh. We finalizing the procession of Palm Sunday and ending this procession inside Al-Khadr Church. And also you can see the cars it's burned by the fire in the next slide. All of that we are doing not just to show you what is we are suffering under these occupation, under these attacks by the settlers, but also to share with you our feelings. Because we are Palestinians, Christians, we are not converted from Islam to Christianity. We are originally Christians. Everything began here. We are the first community of the Christianity here in the city, in the world. And we are the oldest Christian community in the world because we are the son and daughters of the empty tomb. And we are the son of daughters of the third day. The third day we are awaiting from 48 and from 75 years until now. We are awaiting for freedom and for liberty and for liberation and independence. Unfortunately, until now, we don't feel something like that. And that's why the church is doing very good job through by the parish, under the umbrella of the parish and the Latin Patriarchate. In Taybeh, we are lucky. We are a small community, 1,000 people. A lot of people immigrated from 7th of October until now, more than 12 families who left Taybeh to the US. Last month, two of our parishioners left Taybeh, one to Spain, because Spain now it's opened the migrants' door for the Palestinian people, political migrants. And the other one, he went to the US. A lot of people and families now preparing their papers and documents, because they are thinking to leave this city, because we don't feel safe. There is no salary and there is no houses. And this is the point that the Latin Patriarchate, through by this parish and Taybeh, we are creating jobs for the people in collaborating with AFAQ project with Bethlehem University, with Caritas of Jerusalem, with Latin Patriarchate, and all the organization inside and outside Palestine, international and national organization, that we're creating jobs for 70 persons who lost jobs after the 7th of October until now. 70 jobs for 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. And the salary was $500 per month. That's good amount for the people who lost their work. And after that, also we are creating a new idea that we can also making stability for the people to creating a housing project. That's why the Latin Patriarchate, by the parish, bought the land, and on the land there is a property for 5 apartments, existing 5 apartments, non-finishing apartments. We want to finish the first 5 apartments as first phase, and the second phase will be for 15 apartments in the people of Taybeh. In total, we'll have 20 apartments. And through by you, we can also share our intentions that we need your support, not just a physical support and financial support, but as to pray for ourselves and for our people. And you can see the next slide that the Solidarity Day with our heads of the churches, who collect in this church from the 9th century. So from the 9th century until the 21st century, no one, and we don't see something like these small photo and very, very nice photo for the heads of the churches who are praying together in the same church, that we end praying together inside this church as the heads of the churches from the 9th century. And this is a sign of unity with the churches, and sign of solidarity with all the diplomatic missions who came and give solidarity with our people and with our city. You can see in the photo down of the gathering of the heads of the churches and diplomatic missions. You can see the sites of the Bedouins. You can see the cemetery, and you can see also where they burned the fire behind the church. What we call for? We call for the attacks are documented through photos and videos and submitted to human rights and to diplomatic bodies. But unfortunately, until now, we are under the attack. We are under the very bad situation. Until now, we are facing the attacks of the settlers. We are facing a very bad situation and circumstances, but also we have hope inside our heart. And this is what the church are doing. They are doing the first thing to create jobs for the people, to create houses for the people. And the third point, that we are doing something very good job as a diplomatic way to put more pressure on the Israeli government and ministries to stop all of these attacks by the settlers. Because we are bleeding of immigration, we are suffering of immigration, because if one day this land empty from the Christianity, everything will be empty from the holiness, from the love, and the empty tomb will be very sad, because it's not empty tomb now, it's a tomb with a death, not a tomb for the resurrection. So this is the call to action, to put hope inside our hearts, our people, and our kids, that we can also encourage them by creating also something very special for themselves. We're creating 3 academies: Academy for Football, Academy for Music, Soul Academy for Music, and Academy for Folklore and Palestinian Dance. This is a small idea that's how we can also resist. Because we are Palestinian Christians, in faith we resist. Because we are Palestinian Christians, in hope we resist. Because we are Palestinian Christians, in love we resist, and we can love the others and even the enemies who do something like that against our people, against our worship houses, and against our worship places, against our land. And when they burn the fire in this land, to everyone have to know, we planted olive trees, new olive trees, more than 17 olive trees we planted in the same place where when the settlers burned the fire. So thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for your listening. And I will leave you with this small video.
תמסור דש הביתה, תמסור דש הביתה, בסדר?
Merci beaucoup, Father Bashar.
Thank you, Father Bashar. Here in the media, we hear much about what is happening in Gaza, obviously, but we often forget West Bank and the increase of violence against the Palestinian population perpetrated by the settlers. So thank you. Thank you for what you've just shared with us. I'd like now to introduce Dalia. Dalia Qumsieh is a human rights lawyer, founded and directs the Balasan Initiative for Human Rights. The organization promotes human rights through legal advocacy, research, and policy planning. It challenges unjust Israeli policies and raises awareness on the narratives, hopes, and experiences of Palestinian Christians. Dalia has a bachelor's degree in law from University in Ramallah and advanced degrees in international law and international administration from the University of Paris Sorbonne. Before establishing Balasan, she worked in various Palestinian human rights organizations as senior legal advocacy consultant. Welcome, Dalia.
Merci, Hélène. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you, Hélène.
I'm glad to take part in this important panel alongside such distinguished speakers. I will try to address three main points in my presentation. The first one would be a summary of how things have deteriorated in the West Bank over the course of the last 2 years. The second one pertains to the new developments of with the ceasefire. And the third will be on what demands we have and what can be done in Canada in specific. Now, to the first point, how Israeli policies have deteriorated in the West Bank over the last 2 years. And you have pointed rightfully, Hélène, that in everyone's attention, the global attention has been fixated on Gaza for the right reasons, but the West Bank is not really a different place from Gaza, and the impacts of the war in Gaza were immediately felt the same day in the West Bank. So over the past couple of years, we have been witnessing an unfathomable, really deterioration in the human rights situation here. marked by a major shift from the classic frameworks, if you want, of occupation to directly annexation. And I would like to highlight a bit the context just a bit prior to that. Like before October the 7th, the year 2023 was marked as a record year for us in the human rights domain. While we were monitoring and documenting human rights violations in the occupied Palestinian territory. Yet, since the outset of the war and the genocide in Gaza, and in light of it, the situation has drastically deteriorated in terms of a significant surge in the numbers of the violations, their patterns, and their scales. And let's remember that these were already systematic violations, which means that systems are in place to produce such violations against Palestinians only. So the most prominent feature perhaps has been the way that governing the West Bank has been reshaped and shifted from direct Israeli military rule of the occupied territory to direct Israeli government rule into occupied territory, which is Israel has already done. And by doing so, Israel has moved dramatically towards annexation, manifested in extending its direct authorities not only in Area C, but nowadays, as we see, also in such very alarming precedents into areas A and B. All of them are occupied Palestinian territories. Let's remember that all these divisions are artificial. For us, it's all Palestine, it's all occupied Palestinian territory. But this is to reflect the Israeli extension of illegal authority into new areas of the occupied Palestinian territory. We're also seeing a huge surge in settlement expansion, including new settlements and what they refer to as the legalization of outposts, which are also illegal settlements retroactively also. We're witnessing increased settler violence as a tool of forcible transfer, and this is something we monitored and documented at Balasan. Like settler violence is being used specifically to forcibly displace Palestinians from their communities. And we're witnessing land confiscation in mass, intensified displacement policies. I would say the highest, at least 40,000 people, for example, were displaced, forcibly displaced from the north of the West Bank from the refugee camps. So it's a compounded violation. These are refugees in camps, and they were displaced again in Jenin and Tulkarem. We also are monitoring new and intensified movement restrictions, all amounting to a substantive reconfiguration, if you want, of the facts on the ground towards illegal annexation. Now, if we look at what's going on with the so-called peace accord, I do not call it a peace accord. I think let's identify it as it is, a negotiated, hopefully, end to the genocide in Gaza. We definitely hope and pray for justice and peace, but the situation on the ground is far from being the case, at least in the West Bank. Israel is still colonizing the occupied Palestinian territory. It's still running and expanding its multi-layered systems of oppression against Palestinians. And I think this is the root cause and the heart of the problem. To call it a peace accord would have to directly address this, I think. I think we can't call it peace with the existence of such ongoing and expanding systems of oppression. I think the general atmosphere here is one where you have a prudent sigh of relief, if you want, and it's very prudent. But at least to say that the bloodshed in Gaza has hopefully stopped, although it doesn't look like it. Israel still targeting Palestinians in Gaza. But I am not a woman of politics. I am really a woman of law. And the way I assess this so-called peace plan is through the lens of legality and human rights. Does it fulfill the rights of Palestinians and achieve them and ensure them? Are Palestinians involved in this? Are Palestinians involved in what will happen to them? Who will govern them? Where is the Palestinian right to self-determination? What ensures Palestinians access to their full set of human rights, their fundamental and basic rights, the most basic ones indeed? Will Palestinians live in freedom, equality, and dignity? There's no mention whatsoever of accountability, of course, no reference to international law in terms of, Israel being held accountable and then having to compensate Palestinians and rebuild Gaza, and all of these basic notions and principles of international law and legality and the human rights, as the entire set is not really mentioned in this so-called peace plan. Now, the result of what's going on is making an already dire and rigid situation for us living in the West Bank way much worse in unimaginable ways. Like if you asked us 2 years ago, could the situation get worse? We would have told you no. We cannot perceive how it can worsen. But there we are. Every single aspect of daily life here now is dictated and negatively impacted by Israel's occupation and annexation policies. These are not just policies, they immediately translate into the ground and impede the most mundane daily life here. For instance, today, moving between our cities is all the more impossible, and it's really not an exaggeration to say it's a life-risking mission. Even moving within the same Palestinian towns and villages has become extremely prohibitive. Before that, we used to have Israeli checkpoints at the entrances and exits of the main Palestinian cities. Nowadays, they're within the same Palestinian cities and town. Only in Bethlehem this month, for example, just to give you a small example, in September, only in Bethlehem in September, we have documented the Israeli occupation forces implementing 6 new additional gates, movement restrictions, that is, totaling now in Bethlehem only to 57. This means that education is interrupted, appointments are missed, medical appointments are missed, flights and travel is basically missed, uncertain work schedules, family decisions in a chronic situation of uncertainty, and basically livelihoods, your work, everything is being impeded and disrupted by these restrictions. It's not really only about moving from one place to another. It's the entirety of your life that's being disrupted deliberately as a way of creating deliberately creating that is a coercive environment that really makes people leave. And I think Father Bashar started ringing the alarm bell about the numbers of the people who are leaving. Olive harvest season here has become a nightmare with incessant and increasing settler attacks that prohibit Palestinian landowners not only from accessing their lands, but also destroying rural economies in the process. I spoke in a former and similar webinar about the case of Bethlehem, and I think I don't want to repeat that, but this is where most Palestinian or the remaining Palestinian Christian population is concentrated largely. And this is a city that is being actively targeted and annexed by the annexation wall, by land confiscation, by the expansion of the settlements, by settler violence that is literally displacing communities again, by the most movement restrictions across all the Palestinian governorates. Add to that a very unstable political atmosphere that seems to only deteriorate and produce all the more systematic and multi-layered human rights violations, and a completely destroyed economy, notably with Bethlehem relying mainly on tourism. So The impacts of this situation on the remaining Palestinian Christians is, as you can imagine, therefore precarious, specifically because of the increasingly and incessantly declining numbers, and also Father Bashar referred to that. I must preface by saying that Palestinian Christians are indigenous to Palestine and are an integral part of the Palestinian people. We experience the Israel's occupation in the same way that Palestinian Muslims do. However, it is because the numbers are sharply declining from an already very small percentage that we are ringing the alarm bell. And we view the issue not only from a religious lens, but also from a national lens. Palestinian Christians, again, are indigenous. They've always been part of the social and historic fabric of Palestine. And what is Palestine, the land that brought Christianity to the world without its first Christian denominations, basically? So we literally submitted, and I encourage you to read that, it's on our website. We literally submitted a UN urgent appeal for the UN special procedure, saying that Israeli policies on both sides of the Green Line are bringing the last remaining Palestinian Christian presence at the brink of extinction. And we list out all the developments and the facts and the policies, and we analyze them under international law. And the conclusion is, with Israel's intentional breaches of international law and international humanitarian law, this is very consequential for the last remaining Palestinian Christians here. And again, when we say post-October the 7th, the numbers are sharply declining. It's hard to get exact numbers, but we all have family members and colleagues who are announcing and putting ads that their property is for sale and are leaving. I think all of us from our, communities have witnessed multiple families that have left. I would like to also highlight from a human rights aspect that it is not a choice proper, like this is not completely by choice, because legally speaking, forcible transfer can be direct, pushing people out, and it can be indirect, and both are equally illegal. Indirect, it means when the occupying power deliberately creates a coercive environment where the people live in impossible life conditions that they then leave. Did they really make a genuine choice to leave? This is not the case, at least not the people who have chosen to leave. They leave because the political setting is very unstable. They lost hope that tomorrow will be a better day, and that, human rights violations, again, are so systematic. So where, they cannot ensure their dignity, safety, they cannot live in freedom. And again, giving up hope that tomorrow will be a better day is the momentum where people do choose to unfortunately leave their ancestral lands. If I want to highlight international law and legality, accountability, what can be done, what's it for Canada, let me start by reminding that we wouldn't be where we are now if international law had been respected, and member states have already fulfilled their own legal obligations. That this is something that we ask from all the member states and international community. We're only asking you to fulfill your own legal obligations. So I think the result of impunity is both deepened and broadened patterns and scales of the violations that extend geographically, but also in their scales. And basically awarding the perpetrator, Israel in this case, with impunity in doing so. So I think it should be both legally grounded and politically strategic to hold Israel accountable for all its deliberate violations of international law. Now, let me also remind that preventing genocide is in and by itself a legal obligation. It's not a matter of choice or political will. It is a legal obligation. Not only did member states fail to prevent it, but they also were aiding Israel as it was committing its genocide. And legally, this is also called, complicity. I always say it's not Israel's genocide alone. There's a long list of enablers and supporters who will be held accountable. There will be a moment of reckoning, and these will also be held accountable. So the most recent advisor opinion, for example, the ICJ, it talks about legal consequences of Israeli policies in the West Bank, and it did capitalize a lot on the responsibility of member states to basically act to stop what it concluded as Israel's illegal occupation. So ending complicity and aligning policies with international law is what really states are mandated to do and should be doing. But if we look more specifically at Canada, it's true that Canada did recognize the state of Palestine, and it's an important step. We're not going to say it's not an important step, but was it a priority? No, it was far from being a priority at this time. The way we assess what is a priority depending on our goals. Our immediate goals were to stop basically the bloodshed and the annexation policies in the West Bank. These were the most urgent, like anything that could have been done to stop, and hopefully the ceasefire holds and this goal is achieved. The midterm goals are really about accountability and justice. And then the longer term goals are hopefully about, reconciliation and peace. But for the time being, where we are, recognizing the state of Palestine does not really fit into this. I mean, at least from what we have seen last year when a few European states recognized the state of Palestine, the Israeli government responded by establishing 5 new settlements as a punishment for the European states who recognized the state of Palestine. We paid the price for this recognition. And why is that? Because it was not accompanied by action. What do we mean by action? We mean sanctions according to international law that would hold Israel accountable and make it stop its violations. And again, these sanctions are not something that member states get to do or get to choose to do or not. This is international law. These are legal obligations that member states commit to as part of the international community. So it would have been a lot more useful for Canada, or alongside the recognition of the state of Palestine, to basically suspend its military trade and technology cooperation with Israel, which amounts to millions of dollars in military goods since 2023, and impose, for example, targeted sanctions. Recognize the current frameworks that exist in the West Bank, the prolonged military occupation, the apartheid, the genocide. These are legal terms. These are not our opinions. These are legal terms that are fulfilled, that have definitions, and that must be respected according to international law that Canada is bound to. Support accountability mechanisms as well. The ICC, its arrest warrants, the ICJ ruling, respect and fulfill what is there, the ongoing ICJ case of South Africa against Israel on breaching the genocide conventions. Canada could also protect human rights defenders and Palestinian civil society, support it, uphold its non-recognition and non-assistance obligations according to international law, and address basically humanitarian and protection needs, which are immediate needs here in both in Gaza, primarily, and in the West Bank. And again, not replacing the Palestinian rights. Like, humanitarian aid does not replace the set of Palestinian rights. We cannot put we cannot replace the entirety of our demands into humanitarian aid. If this is delivered, it's a need, it must be done. But, it doesn't resolve the root cause. And finally, basically build its policies on a rights-based peace process, respecting the Palestinian self-determination. And with that, I conclude.
Merci beaucoup, Dalia. Merci d'avoir
Thank you very much, Dalia. Thank you very much for bringing the focus on international law. We do not hear this aspect enough, and thank you also for focusing on the Christian population in the West Bank and the present population, which brings us to say that we need to continue our advocacy towards the Canadian government. It is our duty as Christians. Since the beginning, we've been demanding to stop military exports, and we are going to continue, and we must not stop because of this ceasefire. We need to continue our advocacy work with the Canadian government. I would like now to present Harout Bedrossian. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. He has 20 years as a professional, a senior development professional. As a member of its management team, he has helped restructure Caritas Jerusalem and strengthen its capacities. As the organization's fundraising and compliance manager, he leads donor engagement, develops proposals, and ensures compliance with international standards. Harout also represents the MENA region within Caritas Internationalis, serving on regional committees focused on advocacy, international development, and capacity strengthening. He has a background in education and training and is fluent in Armenian, English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Welcome, Harout. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you, Dalia and Father Bashar, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you for inviting me. I'm located in Jerusalem in the headquarters. Caritas Jerusalem has offices in Bethlehem, Ramallah, and in the north in Jenin. We also have a medical center in Taybeh, where Father Bashar is located, and he always hosts us and cooperates with us. In my presentation, I will not stress on the annexation and difficulties in the West Bank that Father Bashar and Dalia mentioned. I will concentrate on Gaza and what Caritas does with our partners, of course, with Development and Peace and other organizations, other MOs in Gaza itself. So please, if I can get the presentation. Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, from the very beginning of the war, we lost two of our employees. Viola was seeking refuge in the Latin Patriarchate, in the Latin compound, and it was mistakenly, of course, bombarded and shrapnels fell. And she, her family, extended family, and 10 others lost their lives. And Sam, who was a pharmacist working for Caritas Jerusalem, his whole building was bombarded that night, and 16 of his family members were killed. Only one child survived from this bombardment, a 3-year-old girl. Now she's 5, and she's living with her uncle. I just wanted to point out these because we hear that more than 400, maybe 500 aid workers were killed during the war in Gaza. These are not just numbers. Every and each one of them has a name, has a family, and of course has a story. Next slide, please. This is what Dalia in detail described. What's happening to Palestine today. 12%, and you can see again what Dalia in detail described the annexation and the gates, and they talk about two-state solutions, which in the current reality is impossible. And by the way, it's shrinking and shrinking. Next slide, please. Yes, this is before the ceasefire. Our points in Gaza. You see the red ones, we have 10 medical points in Gaza, 5 in the north and 5 in the south. But during the escalation of violence in the north, we froze our operations in 5 of the northern parts of Gaza, and we took other 3 points in the middle governorate. You know, we always close and open centers according to the evacuation orders and according to the safety, considering the safety of our employees. Next slide, please. This is just an example of how the Israeli forces announced the evacuation orders. You see, they have divided Gaza into blocks. So they announced evacuate block 642, for instance, and after a while they start bombarding it. Next, please. These are the blue dots that you see here. These are the militarized aid points that Israel established after they forbade other NGOs, INGOs, United Nations, and others to give help to Gaza. Of course, this is canceled now, and aid is getting in, dripping in, not enough, but it's better than it was before. Next slide, please. This is the old statistics. Currently, they say 68,000 people were killed and more than 170,000 were injured. Of course, everyone is traumatized, and this is why Caritas Jerusalem, with its medical points, we not only give them primary health care, but we also give psychosocial support to children and women. And we have group sessions, family sessions, individual sessions, and the like. Next slide. What is needed in Gaza? Of course, everything is needed. People, those who could get some food, they only got dried food. Vegetables, fruits, meat, poultry, all these things were missing for a couple of years. In shelter, people need tents. Although there is ceasefire, and I hope it will end, it will hold, but people will go on and live in tents for many years to come. So tents or shelters are needed. Of course, psychosocial support is very much needed. Medicine and medical supplies is also in the need. Next slide, please. So we have 20 employees in Jerusalem, 31 in West Bank, and 125 in the slide, but actually it's 126 employees in Gaza. Most of them are nurses and doctors, psychosocial workers. We do 4 kinds of interventions in Gaza: primary healthcare, psychosocial, food aid, multi-purpose cash, and we work with the polio and artificial center in Gaza, and we provide artificial limbs to people. who lost their limbs because of the wars. And there are thousands and thousands of people who need artificial limbs. Next, please. These are some of our medical points. The first one is, of course, in Taybeh, which we renovated, and we added a rehabilitation center there. And the middle one is in the middle governorate, Khan Younis, which was destroyed. Fortunately, we evacuated because they told us beforehand. And the right one is our center in Gaza City, where it was partially destroyed during the war in 2023, but we renovated it. Next, please. This is another the way to the center. This was in Rafah in 2024, and we operated from tents. We are very, very flexible. We, whatever means we have, we reach the people. But this was also evacuated when Rafah was bombarded and people had to move to another area. So this is how it goes. People move from Rafah to Khan Younis, from Khan Younis to the north, from the north to the south. And all our employees, all of them are internally displaced people. Now, because of the ceasefire, some of our employees are going back to Gaza City, to the north. But of course, there is no place to go to. There is no houses, no homes. So people go with their tents, those who have tents, and they pitch their tents in front of their destroyed houses, hoping one day it will be rebuilt. Next slide, please. This is one of the points in Deir al-Balah, which was again destroyed. If we go to the next slide, you see it was destroyed. Then the owner built it again, renovated it again, and we are back in the operating from here. Next, please. This is the Holy Family Parish from above. You can see our center, and you can see the rest of the compound. And this is where all of the Christian population left there reside. By the way, before the war, a year before the war, actually, we did door-to-door survey, and there were around 1,200 Christians, individuals. Now there are around 600. Some were killed, some emigrated. As my colleagues pointed out, Father Bashar and Dalia pointed out, a lot of people have left. Of course, the church remains there. They say we will not move from there, but of course, they are not forcing the population to stay. They are free to leave if they want to. Next slide, please. This is some of our psychosocial activities in Gaza. This is the tent in front of the church, and a few months ago, there were two elderly people sitting there, and the shrapnel again came on top of the church, and one of the women was killed. Of course, it was again by mistake. And after Trump's statement, Israel for the first time apologized and said it wasn't intentional. It's just collateral damage. The same old song. Next. This is when there was really a starvation in Gaza, and we managed to bring in some basic necessities to people. not only the Christian population, of course, also we don't differentiate whenever we have anything that we can afford or we distribute it to the needy. We managed to purchase locally some basic necessities and give it out to people. Next slide, please. This is from the top. This is our medical center in Gaza City, the beach camp, they call it. We have coordinated with the Israeli forces that this is a humanitarian center so that they will not bombard it by mistake again. But again, to be on the safe side, we have put our signs on top of the building. Yes, this is after we renovated the center. You can see that now it's very new, very bright, very welcoming. We had to close it a month ago, but we are planning to reopen it after the ceasefire. We might open it on Monday, actually. Next slide. These are some of the people and the medical aid that they are getting. Medicines, we have pharmacy with medicines, and of course consultations. Every time that we employ new staff, we give them a training, our safeguarding policy. We explain to them that you come into a Christian organization, and we explain to them the patient's rights and all these things. You see that the tables are empty. Usually when we give them the training, we also give them light hospitality, a sandwich, something to drink. I remember this day because we tried to get them a small sandwich and we couldn't find any bread in Gaza. Even we couldn't find clean water, bottled water to give these people. I'm just pointing out that whatever people are suffering, our employees are also suffering, but they continue to do their work. Really, they really amaze me. I mean, if I were there, I wouldn't be able to give this much care to others. Next slide, please. This is, like I said, we work with the Polio and Artificial Limb Center in Gaza. We have provided around 200 limbs with our interventions. And the good thing about this place is that they have the raw materials and they have the workshop. If you go to the next slide, it shows the workshop and they do it there. So when it's closed, it's always closed. So they have the material to do it. Unfortunately, again, it was partially destroyed a month ago, but it's now operational, 70% operational. So we are continuing in partnering with them. That's about it. I leave you with a short video. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Harout, pour ce témoignage.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for this presentation and for the wonderful job that is done by Caritas Jerusalem and its employees. Despite all the challenges and the terrible situation in Gaza and West Bank, despite all that, still doing a brave work, courageous work. Now, before inviting Luke, I'd like to thank you so much. Thank you for your words, for your courage, your dignity that you carry despite the huge challenges. We're deeply touched by the power of human solidarity, going beyond frontiers, languages, and suffering. Thank you. Thank you to each one of you who was present here. Thank you for your listening, for your desire to build a more just and human world. So let us keep that connection alive among us. Connection, a link of hope and fraternity. If you have any questions, I'll invite you to share them in the Q&A. I see that there's a person who asked a question, but Father Bashar has already answered to her. It was a question regarding the music programs that are offered to the children. So you can still ask your questions in the Q&A, and our panelists will be happy to answer to you.
Alors, on a une question qui est d'une... On n'a pas le nom, là, mais qu'est-ce qu'une dame qui vit dans une petite ville
or a woman living in a
du
small city in the middle of the prairies in Canada, what can she do apart from praying? But what else can she do?
Can I?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Helen. Merci bien pour votre invitation pour une autre fois.
Thank you again for your invitation. Thank you for inviting us to this Zoom webinar. It is an honor for me to be with you, to be able to talk and to bear witness of that situation. A situation which is very complex here in Palestine. What can you do for us in Palestine? Now, if you're a woman living in Canada, in any place of Canada or anywhere in the world, what can you do? Praying for us is very important, very strong, because the prayer can bring miracles to life. So this is the catechesis of Jesus, who always taught us about prayer that can bring miracles. Now, among Jerusalem, Caritas Jerusalem, if you want to do something special for our people, well, we have some needs, and especially the Christian Palestinians who stayed here in this land. I think what is very important is to encourage us. I can speak on 3 points that the Latin Patriarchy and I myself do here for the people in Taybeh. First of all, what we do, we try to create jobs for Palestinians, for those who have lost their jobs, whether it's in Israel or elsewhere for many reasons. The second thing is to do something special with housing for the people, because those families need roof. And the third thing is through your diplomatic organization, putting pressure on Israel, on the government, not only the demonstrations going down in the streets in Canada, in national capital, or in any city of the world. This is very good. It's a strong solidarity movement, but it's not something that is incarnated here in the land in Palestine. It's important to do something very special, as Dalia said, something that can touch the people, that can stop Israel to, for example, cut the resources that are funding Israel, for example. Those are specific things. We have our goals: creating jobs, creating stability for the families here, and putting diplomatic pressure on the government of Israel through the diplomatic organizations and missions.
Merci beaucoup. Est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre voudrait, dans nos deux panélistes,
Thank you very much. Would any of our other panelists want to answer the question? Go ahead, Dalia. I would like to add, thank you, Bashar, for your answer. I'll answer in English because the question is in English in the chat.
Look, normally, I mean, yes, pray. I was in a webinar, I think last month, when I said, please do not pray for us unless you act with a prayer. I said to the faith-based audience, because usually people are really, they're coming from a very good place. And that's what I said, they want to pray. But, you know, it also gives them a sense that they don't have to act because they just prayed. So no, we're saying pray, but also act upon the prayer. Basically, the classics from our side as human rights organizations is raise your own awareness, learn more, and then raise the awareness of others in your communities. Engage in the rights-based discourse in your country based on, I mean, we're all part of professional and personal networks that we can actively engage in. I don't know what the profession of this little lady living in a small town in the middle of Canada, but I'm sure something you can contribute to professionally and in your own personal communities that can be relevant to the Palestinian rights. Talk to us, Palestinians and Palestinian Christians, if you are a Christian too, and this is what you can identify with. We are here. Make sure that you contribute. I mean, financially is important, but not only financially. Again, being part of an active, directed advocacy towards your governments and decision makers is important. And also, if you can give the Palestinian voice access to places of influence and decision making in your own countries. And we're always here to provide information. We have direct access to the field. We have the expertise. If you have any questions, do reach out, and we're more than happy to answer and connect.
And also maybe we can do something as a sister parish, sister cities, between your city, your parish, and our cities, our parishes here in Palestine, in Jerusalem, in Gaza, in Galilee, and anywhere else. So that also can help, can make exchange, cultural exchange, heritage exchange. And also, and the last point that's, I'm sorry to distributed you, that we can also adding something as come and see and go tell. So you have to visit our land as a pilgrimage to come and see our holy sites, but also our living stones, and go tell what is the truth. This is the point that you also Jesus teaching us inside the Bible.
Thank you. Il n'y a pas d'autres questions? Oui.
Do we have any other questions?
To what extent are churches in Palestine cooperating ecumenically? Are Protestant churches working together with Catholics and Orthodox, or are churches separated, doing their own thing?
Maybe this question for me.
Father Bashar, yes.
Okay. Here in Taipei, we have very good connection together. We are Orthodox Church, Catholic, Roman Catholic Church, and Milkai Church. We working together. For example, we announced and we declared the statements when the settlers burned the fire behind the church together as a three parish priests of Taipei. So this is what it was very strong because we work together and we announced our voice together. We raise our voice together. We have the awareness for all of these problems and we work together. And for another example, here in Taipei, we are working together when we have summer camp. Our summer camp, not Latin separated by the Orthodox and Orthodox separated by the Milkai Church. We are working together and we creating the summer camps for the kids of Taipei in total. Inside our parishes together, and we prepared this summer camp together. So all the churches here in this very complicated situation, and you can saw also the photos inside the church of Al Khadr Church, St. George Church, when all the heads of the churches enter to inside the church and pray together. This is a sign of unity, and when they gathered here together in Taipei, it's a sign of unity of the church. That means we work together, and everything it's through by the heads of the churches and the council of the heads of the churches declared everything about two statements about or three statements about Gaza, two statements about Taybeh, and everything that's happened in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, in Gaza, and all in the Middle East, always is going together and with all the committees inside and under the umbrella of the Council of the Heads of the Churches in Jerusalem.
Merci, Father Bashar. Excellente réponse. Une autre question.
Thank you, excellent answer. Another question. Can you tell us about how management is happening of the distribution of humanitarian aid by humanitarian organizations? I think that Harout might be best for answering this question.
Well, currently Rafah crossing is still closed. There are some statements that they will open it on Monday. Help is getting in, but INGOs are being forbidden to get in, let's say, and they are renewing their licenses. They are not allowing others to get in. In our case, we are different because we are not an INGO, we are local NGO, and we do operate under the umbrella of the Latin Patriarchate. That's why, and our employees are not expats, they're not from abroad, they are Gazans, they live there. So comparing, yes, during the war and now, aid is getting in around 400 trucks per day. It is increasing gradually, but it is not enough. It is not enough. Thank you.
Merci, Harout. Il y a une question
Thank
ici
you,
peut-être pour
Harout.
Dalia.
There's a question here maybe
Au
for
nom de
Dalia.
qui ou de quoi est-ce que les colons envahissent les terres des
In
Palestiniens?
name of who or what are the settlers occupying Palestinian land?
Thousands of years ago, really. This is the ideology that fuels these atrocious human rights violations. If you want, this is the software. And it is also embedded in Zionism. Again, Zionism is basically that fuels this. We have to look at settlers not only as, bad apples and individuals. Settlers are part of the Israeli state, supported by it. Settlements are, again, an integral part of Israel. Even in their quasi-constitutional law, the Jewish nation state law, they refer to settlements, which are, according to international law, illegal, crystal clear positions. They refer to them as a national value. They mount up to war crimes in international law, but in Israel, it's a national value. And thus, the settlers, the ones that are living and expanding the settlements, are directly supported by the state of Israel, part of it working hand in hand, and so is expanding the settlements. And we focused on settler violence and terrorism as a tool to forcibly displace Palestinians, because this is the core of it. Taking over Palestinian lands without Palestinian people. How is this done? Through the settlers, and they're doing that with the protection and accompaniment of the Israeli army. So if you ask the settler, and there are some videos spiraling on social media, they will tell you, this is our land. God promised us this land. You need to get out. So I hope this is, I know it's hard to believe, but it is what it is.
Peut-être, merci beaucoup, Dalia. Peut-être une dernière
Thank you very much,
question.
Dalia. Maybe
In
one
the
last
previous
question.
webinar, a presenter said it was too late for a two-nation state. Did I heard that again in this webinar?
Harout.
Yeah, I said that when I showed the map. Look, settlements, expansion, grabbing of lands, taking the resources from the Palestinian villages is nothing new. It has been going on for decades. It has only increased now during the war because all the main media was on Gaza, so they took the opportunity and they accelerated their pace. This is nothing new. I'm not a politician, but the way I see it, the land is shrinking and shrinking, and it is being divided. I mean, Bethlehem is being divided from Bet Sahur, for instance. We can see it. Sometimes I travel from Jerusalem to Jenin, to Nablus, to the north, and every time I travel, I see a new gate, I see new borders, I see new annexations. We, as Caritas Jerusalem, are involved in more than 30 villages in the north, in Jenin, Nablus, Tulkarim, that area. And every time I go, I see a new settlement, new violations, new destructions. So this thing is going on and on and on. And like Dalia emphasized, the international community is not doing anything except for saying we're worried and we're concerned. And if this goes on, I don't see any two-state solution. There is no state left anymore. I don't know if Dalia wants to continue what I started.
Yes, I think the general atmosphere here in Palestine, you say two-state solution, they tell you where. I mean, you just have to take a quick look at the map that you shared, Harout, which is also, again, it's not the very much updated map. But you look at it and it takes a lot of mental gymnastics to see how this two-state solution can be implemented. But my problem with it is that what's really missing from the conversation is the Palestinian right to self-determination. Like, what kind of governance should take, what kind of political setting should be implemented is the ones that Palestinians choose. And let us remember that the two-state solution was, as our politician Hanan Ashrawi said, a very painful compromise to begin with. If this is what the Palestinian people should choose, then yes, this is what will happen. But for me, again, I'm not a politician. I'm a Palestinian. I'll tell you my sentiments and opinions as a Palestinian, but I'll also give you, what the law should, or what legality says, and what's fair according to international law. The right to self-determination is inalienable. It's indispensable. No one gets to have peace if Palestinians don't experience justice as equal human beings. And this is from the one hand. So it's the Palestinian right to self-determination that determines the kind of political setting. But on the other, you have to look at Palestinian rights, that they are living in equality, peace, and freedom in their homeland. And I think this is the fair solution, irrespective of what we call it, 1 state, 2 state, 30 states, confederal state. I don't mind. I care that we all live in peace, equality, and dignity in our homeland, and that we can continue to provide or to ensure that for for the coming generation. So that's my take.
Merci, Dalia. On est rendu à la fin de notre webinaire. Je sais qu'il reste des questions. On
Thank you,
pourra
Dalia. We're
les prendre, les
getting to the end
copier
of our
et
webinar, so I know that there are still pending questions that will be conveyed to the panelists so that we can get an answer and send it back to the participants. I invite Luke Stocking, our Director for Public Engagement. Thank you. Thank you, Hélène. Thank you all for being with us today. We started this webinar by saying that we are now at the point to determine what the next steps will be. So after those beautiful, great presentations of our guests, we are all ready. We've heard of many things that we can do to take the next steps and be in solidarity with our friends, with our partners, and the Palestinian people. So we will close this time together with this prayer that is coming from our Pope Francis. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord of peace, hear our prayer. We have tried so many times and over so many years to resolve our conflicts by our own powers and by the force of our arms. How many moments of hostility and darkness have we experienced? How much blood has been shed? Many lives have been shattered. How many hopes have been buried? But our efforts have been in vain. Now, Lord, come to our aid. Just peace, teach us peace. Guide our steps in the way of peace. Open our eyes and our hearts and give us the courage to say, never again war. With war, everything is lost. Instill in our hearts the courage to take concrete steps to achieve peace. Give us the strength daily to be instruments of peace. Enable us to see everyone who crosses our path as our brother or sister. Keep alive within us the flame of hope so that with patience and perseverance we may opt for dialogue and reconciliation. In this way, may peace triumph at last, and may the words division, hatred, and war be banished from the heart of every man and woman. Lord, diffuse the violence of our tongues and our hands. Renew our hearts and minds so that our way of life will always be that of shalom, peace, salam, amen. Amen.
Merci tout le monde de votre participation. Encore une fois, de vous entendre.
Thank you all for your participation. As we listen to you, it is helping us to understand and encouraging us to keep on doing advocacy work for our government and involve the Canadian population to participate in donations for responding to the immediate needs of Palestine. Thank you again and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bon dimanche. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye, Dalia. Merci beaucoup.
Je vous en prie. Bye.